Hello and welcome into another episode of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. I'm Kyle Glaser alongside three-time Padres All-Star closer Heath Bell. Heath, we are exactly 2 weeks away from opening day, which means roster cutdowns are coming, which means the regulars are getting more time in spring training. It's an exciting time. Everything's starting to feel a little more real. And again, the closer opening day gets, the more the excitement builds. I know for me, and I think everyone else in the baseball world.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's it's almost like countdown time, 14 days until you get to go, or maybe 13 days until you get to go to your home stadium and have that exhibition game somewhere or at home, and then opening day. So it's you can't really describe it. I think it's better than football, it's better than basketball, probably better than hockey. Don't follow hockey that much, but it's just one of those things that is just exciting. It should almost be like a national holiday or something. Everybody just kind of knows. Everybody's excited. A lot of people take days off and, take their sons to the ball game, this and that. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's electric right now. So it's fun. It's fun. It's a great time of the year. And, I think the Padres are going to do something this year that I think the Pods – I just heard a big thing about the Yankees. They're about Cole going down and this and that. They should try to call up the Padres and try to get Dylan Cease and this and that. And I was like, well, I think we got some pieces to the puzzle. I think we're fine. So I think people might be coming towards us, but we're going to see what we got. And I think we're going to do pretty well.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about Dylan Cease and, that whole situation again. There's some other things I think I want to hit on first, but there's no question that, and I've said this all along, in order to acquire someone like Dylan Cease, whoever is acquiring him would have to give up someone that they really don't want to give up. And I think from the Padres' perspective, it just doesn't make sense to trade him unless you're getting multiple big league ready pieces back. But we can dive in a little bit to what that might look like.
Yeah, that's down the road. Who would we want? I mean, we don't really have. I mean, bona fide left fielder that is 21 years old. That's a huge player. There's not really a position that's open. So,
and again, there are candidates, but no one the Yankees would want to part with. Yeah. Before we dive into, the theoreticals of what could happen down the road, I want to dive into what is happening on the field right now. And that is Gavin Sheets going absolutely off this week in spring training, 5 home runs in a 4-day span, including a 2 home run game against his former team, the White Sox, including a walk-off. Sheets entered camp this year as, a player on a minor league deal, just trying to make the roster. And when you look at the Padres roster coming in, there were a few spots to be won. Who's going to be the starting left fielder? They ended up going with the platoon option. Who's going to be the starting catcher? And with that, there are more or less 3 available position player bench spots, because one's going to go to whoever doesn't win the catching job. You have your backup catcher. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of an open competition. And Gavin Sheets, again, him, Mike Brasso, Oscar Gonzalez, minor league deals. You had Tyler Wade, Eggy Rosario, who were with the team last year. They're just going to see who's going to go out, who's going to win the job. And with his big week, Gavin Sheets has really started to stake his claim, and he does fit what the Padres need in that they need an everyday DH. He can play left, he can play right, he can play a little bit first. They need left-handed power off the bench. And with the big week he's had, he's really, really made a case that, he should be on the opening day roster. Do you feel like he's clinched a spot already?
So here's the dilemma with the Padres and Sheets. I think he's an amazing guy. I think he's starting to figure out how to hit. I haven't seen him in spring training beforehand, so I don't know if with the White Sox he had really good spring trainings and kind of fell off. But he looks like a really established hitter, and I think just being in the league for a couple of years now, and maybe he's kind of understood the league. He understands what guys are trying to do to him. Here's the problem that I have is, he's got to keep hitting. You got 2 more weeks. I mean, that's 1 good week. It's an amazing week. If he doesn't have to keep hitting like 5 home runs every week, that'd be awesome. So he has 15 for the spring. But if he just keeps hitting the ball, getting a hit every game, whatnot, or at least hitting around 300 every game, he should be on the team. But the problem is, I've seen guys hit 10, 15 home runs in spring training, hit 380, and the club never had a spot open for them. Secretly, it's like when you get certain guys and you sign minor league deals, but secretly behind the GM knows that he wants that guy on the team.
Yeah.
But it's not official until the end of spring training, where Sheets is one of those guys that I think, well, okay, he hasn't done well with the White Sox, but let's pick him up. Left-handed bat, can hit some pop.
Yeah.
In case we need somebody down the road. I'm just worried that that's what they're thinking of him, where like, oh, he's a minor league guy. And, if somebody gets hurt in spring training, he could break off with the team, where I think he deserves it. It's kind of back to the game of, remember when Tatis first came to spring training, big league spring training, tore it up. And everybody was like, we need this kid on the team. We need him. I mean, we really didn't have a shortstop at the time.
Yeah.
We don't really have a left-handed bat with power / we don't have, I think of him as a great first baseman, maybe a DH guy.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of see him. And we don't really have that guy like bona fide. It's kind of just flip-flop and flip a coin. Who's going to be DH, who's going to be first baseman that, for this game. So I think, if he keeps hitting the way he does, I think he should be on the team, but I have a funny suspicion they never expected him to do well. And they're going to send him to AAA. They're going to keep him all the way to the end in case somebody gets hurt or whatnot. But I think he should be, in case of at least running for a playoff spot, a roster spot for opening day, for the simple fact is he's deserving of it. But spring training's not over. There's some other guys, like Luis that we got in from the Mets. He's starting to hit the ball and do really well, but he's on a minor league contract too. So was he kind of like I said before last time, was this like, hey, just come to camp and get some hits and show me you're healthy and you're on the team? Or is this a real minor league contract that, he has to earn a spot? So, I mean, he would have to keep hitting and Sheets would have to keep hitting. In my point, I think the best guys in spring training should make the team unless you have a year contract. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this next week, and hopefully Sheets keeps hitting the ball because I'm rooting for him. And then here's the other part. If he makes the roster, that boy should be playing right away because he's hot.
Yeah.
When guys are hot, play them. Sometimes that happens. And, don't be like, well, he's my first guy off the bench. Okay, but play him. I mean, the spring training, the boy's playing. Let Gavin play. Let the guy hit. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's just my take on it.
When you look at spring training success, it's really, really important to see who are they having their success against. Sometimes you see guys putting up big numbers, but then you look under the surface and it's a lot of guys who are wearing number 97, have yet to play above A ball. So I went back and looked at who the pitchers Gavin Sheets have homered off of. First was Alonzo Richardson with the Guardians, minor leaguer. But then you get three big leaguers, Enny Romero, a lefty, and that's very important. I'll get to that in a little bit, seeing Sheets homer off a lefty. But Enny Romero, he hasn't been in the big leagues for a few years, but he is a big league veteran. Tony Santillan with the Reds is a part of their bullpen and a pretty good reliever for them. Tyler Gilbert, lefty with a lot of big league time. Padres fans will famously remember no-hit the Padres, and he was a member of the Diamondbacks. So, again, he hit 3 homers off big league guys, including 2 lefties, which, again, is really, really key for him. Last one came off of Bryce Collins, a minor leaguer at the White Sox. So none of the home runs have come off against, studs, guys who are going to be opening day starters or rotation members. But there are 3 big leaguers in there, 2 of whom are lefties. So I think there is some positives there. You can say, okay, when he's going up against guys who fit in the middle of a bullpen somewhere, he's showing the ability to get to his power. And that is a positive development when you just look at, okay, these 5 spring training home runs, who are they against? Seeing 3 big leaguers and 2 lefties, I think, is a promising sign.
Well, think about this. If you're a big league hitter, minor league guys should be really easy to hit.
Yeah.
So I take it as if you hit 10 home runs in spring training, you're on. Yeah, I don't care if it's against the minor leaguers, but really, is it early in spring training? Like right now, we're kind of in the middle of spring training. We got the guys that are not even going to make the roster and don't even have a chance, or not even in spring training anymore. We're going after guys that in spring training right now, this past week and this next 2 weeks, are guys that are, they have a chance of making the roster, or they're the guys that are going to be the first ones called up, during the season. So what he's doing this past week is, some minor league guys, some big league guys, no real studs, but then again, they're studs for a reason. They don't hit home runs. They don't get home runs hit off them if they're studs. But it's just one of those things. If somebody gets hot, especially in spring training, you're not playing every single day. You're playing every other day. You're kind of filling in. Hey, you're not playing today. Hey, so-and-so's calves bothering them because, let's just say Tatis calves bothering them. Yeah. Hey, can you just you were supposed to have 2 days off, but you want to pick this up and play it, like getting a bat or two, and then we'll bring a minor league guy for the second half. And he's like, yeah, I want to do that. So I think that's, he's doing it. That's why I said the next 2 weeks, if he can get some hits and hit 300 this next 2 weeks, he should be a lock for make the opening day roster. So it's important to hit off big league guys, but like I say, it's if you're a big league hitter, minor league guys in theory should be easy to hit off. I mean, yeah, they're going to throw balls up and in because they have no idea where it's going sometimes, but in theory, their stuff's not as good as big leaguers. Otherwise they would be there. And then, pitching, the minor league guys are going to be really aggressive. So use it to your advantage, so they're going to try to get a hit and swing at the first pitch they see. So throw that 0-2 pitch, the first pitch. If you're a pitcher, you want to do well. Yeah. So there's a give and take in that. And there's, veteran guys, big league guys are kind of veterans where they understand, where minor league guys are just like, I want to hit. I want to hit I want to get people out, this and that. It's like, I want to strike people out, where, pitchers, big league guys is like, dude, I want to get you out on the first, second pitch. I want to save my arm for the season. So, I don't care if I strike people out during spring training. I just want to get people out and feel good. So, it's a little different mindset.
Yeah, I think one of the things with Gavin Sheets, and again, spring training, as you've talked about, as I've talked about, you never want to go crazy. It's more looking for things that just kind of raise your eyebrows. Okay, that's good to see. Gavin Sheets throughout his career in the major leagues has been an extreme platoon guy. Short version, he has not hit lefties at all. Looking at his career numbers, he's hit 44 of his 46 career home runs against righties. He's actually been a decent hitter against righties, about 240, OPS over 700, 44 of his 46 career homers. Against lefties in his career, he's hit 168 with 2 home runs. And one of the things that raised my eyebrows, and I talked about this on a solo podcast I did for us after the spring training opener. In the opener, he was facing the Mariners, Jonathan Diaz, a lefty with some big league time. And he got a fastball inside from a lefty, and I saw Sheets pull his hands in, keep them tight, and rope it down the right field line for a double. And just kind of raised my eyebrows a little. I was like, huh. I've watched him a lot over his, actually going back to his days at Wake Forest, I saw him a lot. That's not something he used to be able to do. So that just kind of raised my eyebrows as, hey, he's having a good approach and making good contact against a lefty. And then seeing him during this stretch hit 2 of his home runs off of lefties, again, at spring training, but he's literally hit as many home runs off lefties this past week in spring training as he's hit his entire big league career. I mean, there's improvement there, and I think it speaks to just him improving as an overall hitter. I think it's a positive sign looking forward.
I think here's the thing. He was with the White Sox. That was unfortunately a shamble over there. And
yes,
I don't know anything that went good last year for them. He got out of there, and he probably spent this offseason like, okay, where's my weak links? Hitting lefties. I got to show people I got to hit lefties. I might be a bench guy. I'm starting off with a new team, whatnot. And he probably went to work in the offseason. And this spring training, I mean, I'm pretty sure our coaches were all like, we need you to hit lefties. That's one of those keys. And if he worked that hard hitting lefties in the offseason before he even came to camp, and then, basically his predictions were right, that's what he needs to work on. And then he's been really working really hard, keeping his hands in, doing the things he did, to get drafted. Sometimes you got to go back to the basics. You got to go back to your little league days, just see ball, hit ball. So I think all that hard work he's done this offseason is starting to pay off. And if he keeps doing it the next 10 days, I think he should be rewarded, to break with the team. So, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, because now we're going to get a little bit nitty gritty this next week. I mean, cuts were always Wednesday and Thursdays. I don't know if they still are, but it's midweek is when you kind of lose 2 or 3 more guys.
Yeah.
And mostly it's pitchers. Some, it's occasionally a position player here and there, but yeah, if he can keep raking like he is, I mean, why not? And then here's the other part. Why not start if he rakes this next 2 weeks, why not be the opening day first baseman? Why not? Just throw it out there.
I think it'd probably be DH, but yes, if he continues
who's gonna play first?
Luis Arias first, Jake Cronenworth at second.
I think Sheets a little bit taller.
He is much taller, no question about it.
Just saying, I like the taller people. That's all at first.
It's interesting. Going back, I first saw Gavin Sheets, back when I was at Baseball America, when he was at Wake Forest. I actually remember covering a game in Winston-Salem, Wake Forest versus USC. And there was a good Wake Forest team. He was on that team. Stuart Fairchild was on that team. Parker Dunshue was on that team. Guys who've gotten some big league time. And my first game ever seeing Gavin Sheets, he hit 3 homers and tied the school record with 9 RBIs. Wake Forest against USC. He teed off on a pitcher named Mitch Hart. And Wake Forest is a bit of a bandbox. The ball flies there, but it was real power. Look, his dad was a big leaguer. Larry Sheets played for the Orioles for a long time. You just saw the swing, the power, the way the ball came off the bat. And it was all fields. He hit a towering drive to right field. He hit a line shot that kept carrying. He hit a bomb the opposite way off the just to the left of the scoreboard in center field to the left center. I mean, it was real left-handed power. And the biggest thing, you kind of alluded to this with the White Sox. Look, the White Sox were a dysfunctional organization. Their 41-121 record last year, the worst in Major League history, was the product of multiple years of failures. It's not like one year where everything in the bottom dropped out. Organizationally, they were dysfunctional for years. And look, every Major League front office knows where the low-hanging fruit is. Who are the organizations that are not going to fully develop guys, where guys are not going to be, coached up to their fullest potential, where you say, hey, maybe we get them out of there, fresh start. We think good things can happen. For a long time, the Pittsburgh Pirates were like that with pitchers. Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, and even Joe Musgrove, the Padres. Every team in baseball knew that any pitcher on the Pirates had more in the tank because that organization did not know how to develop pitching. They were a dysfunctional organization. They were a cheap organization. They were poorly coached. You knew that if you got a Pittsburgh Pirate, you were going to get someone who had some more in the tank for a long time. And the White Sox, with their position players, have been that way in recent years. So many of their guys just really stalled out and stopped getting better. That was a signature thing with the White Sox. Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, guys who just stalled out. And even some of their younger guys, Jake Berger was one of them, Gavin Sheets. As soon as Jake Berger got out of Chicago, went to Miami, he started hitting 30 home runs. Now he's in Texas, going to be a starting first baseman. So I think with Gavin Sheets, you see a guy who has always had 20-plus home run ability, but he was in a bad situation with bad coaches and a bad organization. I do think this is a case of, the White Sox are an organization where other teams know they're kind of low-hanging fruit, their players, and you get them with a better coaching staff and a better system, better organization with more resources, you can see an uptick in performance. And I think that was a strong bet to make about Gavin Sheets. And I would not be shocked if there's, that's the eventuality. There is real, 240, 250, 20 homer, 80 RBI kind of production in there. He just needs to get out of Chicago, which has just been an absolute dumpster fire for years.
Yeah, the White Sox just haven't been good. You kind of based on it, shot on it with Pittsburgh Pirates. They had some good pitching, but they just never developed. I came from the Mets that was in a 5-6 year period where the coaches were really bad, and people just didn't develop out of there. And then they got rid of the coaches, and the team started doing better. So it's just one of those things. You got to have good coaches. You got to have a good organization, like I've talked about the GM, the coaches, and the players all feeding for the same, going the same direction. And it's not just getting butts in the seats, this and that, have a real chance of winning, even if you have a young team. So, the White Sox, people are probably loving to get to the big leagues, win the minor leagues, but then screaming to want to get traded, get out of there or something like that. I mean, you can go as far as look at Tatis came from the White Sox. He was an A-ball, but they didn't see potential in him. They saw he's got talent and this and that, but we'll trade him and a couple other guys for a big league starter. And, we kind of won that deal. So hopefully this year we won that picking up Sheets deal too. So, I mean, if he could turn into a 25 home run guy, hit 260, maybe a little bench, maybe playing a little bit when he gets hot, I think we'll win definitely. And then maybe he can show everybody that he's an everyday player. So there's a lot of potential there, especially if you look at his history at Wake Forest.
Yeah, and again, I talk about Yohan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn. I mean, these are talented players, and every single one of them, their progression stalled in Chicago. Again, I talk about Jake Berger a little bit, getting out of there and really performing as well. So all these guys, the White Sox are low-hanging fruit as an organization. They're trying to fix that, but that has been the case the last few years. And that's why I think, Gavin Sheets, and he's talked about this a little bit in spring training, just, different coaches, different voices. Look, the Padres hitting coaches, Victor Rodriguez and Tim Leiper, are immensely better than any coaches on the White Sox staff in recent years. And I mean, you can speak to this. You kind of alluded to it, but How important is that, having the coaches who are just better at their jobs? How much can that impact a player? Because I think people inside the clubhouse appreciate it. People outside don't always appreciate it. How important is it to have the right coaches who just frankly are better at their jobs?
Here's the thing. I think I would want to say 99% of the coaches know hitting. Let's just say hitting or pitching or just general. They know how to pitch. They know how to hit. They know how to field. They know how to do that. It's how they communicate with the guys. The way, if I was coaching Machado and then teach him how to do ground balls, I might treat him one way and then treat X another way and Coneworth another way.
Yeah.
Just because it's different personalities, it's different people. Yeah. You can't treat everybody exactly the same. Now, a manager can kind of do that a little bit because he's the seniority of the guy, but also it takes two with the player. Yeah. If the coach is talking to the player and the player really believes what the coach is saying, and trusts him, because I've had pitching coaches like, hey, just try this. And I'm like, well, but my arm, try your arm a little bit lower, this and that to do this. And I'd just be like, it just doesn't feel comfortable because I'm not relaying. Like, he wants me to do this. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to finger pressure this and that. Well, drop your arm and try that, because maybe that's the way he did it. But the couple things before, I didn't believe what he said. So I'm not going to try it 100%. But if there was a coach like Balsley, we kind of had a good relationship. Really was Ackerfeld in the beginning that kind of made me comfortable to San Diego. And then Balsley, he was big on, hey, ask your guys as coaches. I'm just going to oversee it because he sees you guys every day. So that respect of the bullpen coach is always going to be there with me in the bullpen. And the head pitching coach says, hey, this is your guy, but I'm still going to pay attention. But he's your guy. So it made me feel confident for Ackerfeld because he's the coach you're always going to see in the bullpen, but also made me feel confident our head guy, that Balsley, that I didn't talk to early on in spring, that he likes that, I'll stay in the shadows until I say something. And occasionally he'd come over and say something to me, but I respected it and I, trusted, okay. And I might go to Ack and say, hey, what was he meaning by this? And he'd break it down a little bit because we're working as a team. But you got to have that trust as a player, or you got to have trust as a coach for the players, because you got to earn that trust with the players first. You can't just come in and say, hey, Sheets, you can't hit lefties, man. So what we're going to do is this. The coaches must have came in and said, hey, you've probably struggled a little bit with lefties, and you probably, what do you think, talk to the player. And the player might have said, hey, I think I was doing this, or, hey, I really worked hard this offseason. All right. I saw a few things. Do you want to hear them now or do you want to hear them later? Kind of give it the players chance to be like, let me hear them later. Let me try my way out first. Okay, no problem. Or like, hey, what do you see too? Because, I might have missed something. So you build that relationship. It's the communication relationship with individual players. Then you can really break things down. And then you can come up to like, Sheets and go, I'm just speculating here. Like, hey, your back elbow was a little bit higher, a little bit low, when you're facing lefties, but when you're facing righties, it's back up here. Do you even notice you're doing that? Maybe that keeps the hands in or it keeps the hands out. I don't know. I'm not, I wasn't with them with the White Sox last year and I wasn't in spring training. So,
but you get the point that there's little things that's about the communication. And I think that's important to remember. We're in a very data-driven world right now, not just in baseball, but in all aspects of business. But at the end of the day, it's about using that data to arm the coaches with information to then help teach the players, help them get better. It's not just, if you just spout data at guys, it doesn't do anyone any good. You still have to have that communication. At the end of the day, coaching and really every aspect of baseball, it is a people business. You are trying to help people, and just spewing data doesn't do that. You have to have coaches who have the credibility and who can communicate. That is paramount to a successful
organization. Ochi said it the best 2 years ago when he went to the Rangers. He said, the data, hey, anything to help me coach better is, I'll agree with that every day. Back in the day, we just called it the old scout guy. Now it's about the data, but it helps me coach better. That's the key. And that's where I think the data, you just can't tell people, say, hey, you don't hit good against lefties. Well, here's the data. This is what you're doing. Correct the player. So, that's like you said, it's data driven, this and that, but there's still people out there. They're not robots. And you just got to go out there and they're giving their best, and if you can help them, And sometimes we need somebody watching us that we trust to say something about your hands or elbow. Cause if you don't trust, I mean, there's times that your hands are dropping here. I tell my kid and he doesn't trust me. He's like, what do you know about, hitting? You were in the big leagues or something like that. You didn't get a hit in the big leagues. And I'm like, well, I'd see guys' hands drop. So this is what I throw them, so little things like that. But, it's all about trust. I'm a big believer. If you're ever coaching out there, you got to believe the players. The players have to believe you and trust you. And then you can all go in the same direction and possibly win a championship.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier Fernando Tatis Jr. having a great camp, and a lot of the Padres veterans did go to Coach Andy Green at the time and say, hey, this guy needs to be on our roster. Similar thing happened with Chris Paddock when he had a really good camp a few years ago. In a case like Gavin Sheets, again, if he continues to hit like he has, and maybe there are players who start saying, hey, we want this guy on our team. As a player who became a veteran and became one of the leaders of the Padres and frankly a face of the franchise at your peak, did you ever have that where you went into Bud Black's office or any of the coaches and said, hey, we need this guy, we want this guy on the team based off something you saw in spring?
No, unfortunately, no. But I did have Jed Hoyer come to me and ask me about some guys in spring training. Bud Black would ask me hey, what do you think about this guy or that guy? And I'd give him my honest opinion. Yeah. It was never like, hey, should we have this guy on the team, this and that. He wanted to see a player's perspective and how's he in the clubhouse? What's he like over here and there? And just a little spring training, I was one of those guys that was like the first one in the clubhouse and the last one to leave. So I kind of saw a lot. And I think that's why guys came to me. But it was more just, hey, what do you think about this guy? And unfortunately back then, I mean, the best, 07 was probably the best team we had. And I was brand new, so nobody asked me anything, but hey, go strike people out. But after that, we didn't really have the best teams. I mean, in 2010, we got really close to getting the playoffs, and we had some teams that weren't supposed to do well, and we did really well. So it was more just, hey, how's this player? Even during the season, we'd have some, players that got into some problems or, clubhouse issues. Yeah. And the GM, Jed Hoyer, and Bud would come to me and, hey, what happened here? What's this? Or hey,
how often was Matt Latos at the center of that?
The funny part is I got asked about Matt Latos about 3 times from Jed Hoyer, and Latos wasn't the problem all 3 times.
Okay.
It just seemed like on the outside, because the way he talked to the press and the way he did stuff, he was a problem, but he really wasn't a problem in the clubhouse. He only did like 1 or 2 things, but we kind of policed it. And me and Eckstein kind of talked to him, and he was fine right away. It wasn't a big deal. He would listen to us, kind of like he'd kind of like get a little out of the frame, and we'd like bring him back and be like, okay, if he was doing this and the press said it, he'd just keep going. So it was just one of those things that, or fans say, hey, you can't do this or that, but we keep him in line. And a lot of times it was just somebody got really upset and they took it out on Latos, and he didn't know how to like just wear it or respond the right way. So, I mean, he got some bad luck, I guess you say. He wasn't wearing the shirt that says lucky. So he was an unlucky guy, unfortunately, with the media and just other players.
Gotcha.
Just thinking like he would do dumb things, not thinking, and you're like, dude, he's young and dumb. You gotta like, he almost needs like not a bodyguard, but just somebody to, a conscience guy to keep him straight arrowed. Whatnot.
He needed a Jiminy Cricket to be like,
yeah, Jiminy Cricket. That's what he needed. Just somebody like, hey, don't do that, do this. So, but he wasn't a bad guy.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I'm telling you, it's Matt Latos. It's funny because when you said that, I went, oh yeah, Jed asked me a lot. Hey, is Latos the issue? I'm like, actually not. This guy over here is the issue. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, because he bugs the crap out of Matt every day. He like pushes him to the breaking point, and then Matt will say something. And I'm like, and it's like, it's not Matt. Somebody's pushing him to do it. So
gotcha. Okay. Hey, that's good insight. A lot of times people just see the reaction and assume that the guy's the problem.
Yeah, they definitely, but there was one guy on our team that was a problem. And if I'm not going to say his name, but there's a reason he bounced around. He was a good ball player, and he bounced around for many years, but he played for 12 or 13 years, but he bounced around 1-year contracts because he was good. But then as soon as you get to know him, we don't want him. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's certainly those guys in the clubhouse. And circling it back to Gavin Sheets, good news is Sheets isn't one of those guys. Genuinely good guy. I talked to him when he was at Wake. Has had a good reputation. Again, I think I can see a scenario where we get to opening day and Gavin Sheets is not only on the opening day roster, but the opening day DH. Because I think you go back and look. I mean, let's go through this roster right now. And again, we'll do a full-on roster projection here, next week as we get a little closer. But talk about, you go around the diamond. Look, Arias at first, Cronenworth at second, Bogarts at short, Machado at third, Tatis and right, Maryland center. Left will be one of Hayward and Joe. Catch will be one of Diaz and Campusano. So, you've got essentially your 8 guys in the field. Whoever doesn't win the left field or catcher opening day job, will be on the bench. Maybe one of them could be the DH, but I could see a scenario where, call it, Hayward and Diaz as the starters on opening day. So you have Joe and Campusano on the bench, and Gavin Sheets is the opening day DH. I could see that. I could also see Jason Hayward or Connor Joe, whoever doesn't win the left field opening day job, is the DH, and Sheets is on the bench. I do think what he provides, that left-handed power, the ability to play both outfield corners and first, it fits really well with the Padres' needs. Because you look at their other bench options, it's a lot of infield types, utility types: Tyler Wade, Eggy Rosario, Jose Iglesias. Mike Brasso's a lefty masher, has some right-handed power. Oscar Gonzalez again is an outfielder's right-handed hitter. There's really, when it comes down to left-handed power bats, which the Padres need, even in their lineup. I mean, Merrill and Cronenworth are good hitters. Neither of them you would describe as a power hitter. Arias, of course, is not a power hitter at all. I really do feel like he fits the roster well. And we come down to, okay, who are some left-handed guys with pop? It's Gavin Sheets and Tirso Ornelas. Ornelas has had a really good camp too, but I think you can say, hey, Ornelas, still has options just from a roster construction standpoint. I think there's a real shot Gavin Sheets is not only on the opening day roster, but he might be in the opening day starting lineup as their DH.
I like that. Ornelas, I think, is just one more year away from making the team. I really do. Just go to AAA, do it in El Paso, kick some butt again this year, and he'll be there. He'll be there if we need him this year, but he has a really good chance of making the team next year. But Sheets, I think, like you said, he should be. Basically, what you're saying is our starting lineup is here, and then you go to our bench and it's way down here. But with Sheets, our starting lineup's here. He's just right here. He's not that much of a, miss, where he's got the power, he's got the pop. He could play every day, but, you have a couple guys in front of him or whatnot that maybe can hit a little bit better or whatnot, or just potential in the past have hit better. So it's just one of those things where, I get it. Even if he's our DH or our bench guy right off the bat. But, I think if he shows that he can hit the next 2 weeks, I'm saying, hey, why not? Stick him in the lineup. But then again, with the stats and all that, who we facing?
Yeah.
What's the wind like? Is the sun straight up? What's the temperature? This and that. Who got a good night's sleep last night? According to, I don't know, they probably have heartbeats on everybody now. So
what's their Aura Ring data kind of?
Their Aura Ring data today, is today, do you have a good sign today or something?
Your horoscope?
So who knows? I mean, that's the way we're going. Everybody wear this necklace or this bracelet so we can tell everything about you. You had a good night's sleep and you didn't.
Yeah.
You're well rested. You're playing today. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and again, we'll see what happens. Heath, before we wrap up here, we do need to address it. You touched on it a little bit earlier. Yankees obviously have been hit very, very hard by injuries this offseason, the spring training. Luis Gil, reigning rookie of the year, goes down. He'll be out till about June. And of course, Garrett Cole, one of the best pitchers in baseball. And I think you could argue the best pitcher in the American League. Even though he wasn't Cy Young Award winner last year, he was the year before. And look, his track record speaks for itself. Suffered an elbow injury that ultimately required Tommy John surgery, which has the Yankees, a little nervous, understandably. And obviously, anytime there's any Yankee injury, trade rumors start to swirl. And because Michael King and Dylan Cease were rumored earlier in the offseason, we're starting to see a little more uptick, mostly coming from the New York side of things. Hey, does Dylan Cease make sense? And I think it's important to note the Padres right now, I see them as kind of an 86, 87 win team, which is, right on the cusp of playoffs, making the playoffs. If they trade Dylan Cease, they drop out of that. They become an 82-win team. And so the difference between having Dylan Cease and not having Dylan Cease potentially is a playoff team. And so if you're going to trade him, it has to be for multiple major league ready pieces and someone that you don't want to give up. I go look at the Kyle Tucker trade between the Astros and Cubs this offseason. For 1 year of Kyle Tucker, the Astros gave up, the Cubs gave up a multiple time 30 home run hitter and all-star who's 25, multiple years control left in Isaac Paredes, a young pitcher who's been pretty good, has a sub 3.5 ERA in the major leagues in Hayden Wesneski, and a first-round pick in Cam Smith who looks like an absolute monster. I mean, it was a young, controllable, big league ready all-star, a first-round pick, a really good first-round pick. And, the third piece was a good big league pitcher who's been effective. That's for 1 year, and it costs a lot. And that's what it's going to cost for the Yankees or any team to go get Dylan Cease when you're talking about a trade between two contending clubs. And even people say, well, what about the Juan Soto, deal with the Padres and the Yankees? For Juan Soto, the Padres got 3 starters who had big league experience with multiple years of control and a top 100 prospect who they were then able to flip for Dylan Cease. It's going to cost a lot. So I think when people talk about the Yankees and trading Dylan Cease, look, if you're the Padres, it doesn't make sense to move him unless you're getting someone the Yankees will not want to trade and probably shouldn't trade. And Austin Wells, you talk about long-term need at catcher, a Jason Dominguez, long-term need in left field. The Yankees would not trade them for 1 year of Dylan Cease, and the Padres should not trade Dylan Cease without getting one of those guys. So I just don't think it's going to happen at this point. Again, we get to the deadline, see where the teams are. If, Padres have had some injuries, they fall out of it, the calculus changes. But right now, again, in order to acquire Dylan Cease, it's going to cost the Yankees something they won't want to part with and probably shouldn't part with. So I just don't see it happening. Again, crazier things have happened, but it just doesn't make sense from the Padres' perspective to move him unless the haul is so large that the other team would never actually part with it.
Well, I take it like this because I was a player. If you're going to trade one of our main guys that, our starter, even though he's becoming a free agent at this year, you're basically saying, hey, we don't have a chance of winning. We don't have a chance for the playoffs this year. Yeah, where if management does that, it's almost like, yeah, we're gonna let him go. We're gonna trade him. You can, even if you got Wells back and some first rounders or whatnot, it's like, well, we're filling our spots. Well, then you just opened up a hole for us, So you don't think we're gonna win this year. You're playing for 26. So spring training trades, if they happen, I kind of tell that management doesn't believe they're going to win and they're just producing and they're waiting for like a year or two down the road. Yeah. That's kind of how players take it. So, I mean, I like talking trade talks because in the bullpen, that's all we do during the year. In spring training, we do it a little bit. Mid-season, yeah, hey, if we could get Barry Bonds or we could get this guy, we'll give up Jake Peavy for Barry Bonds. It's like, because we need offense. I mean, remember 07, it was like Peavy's going to win the Cy Young. But Chris Young was like number 2, and we're like, well, we have no offense. We need
like that.
The rest of us can pitch, but we have no offense. So
didn't quite get Barry Bonds, got Milton Bradley, which had some pluses and minuses.
Oh well, yeah. I don't want to go back. There was just a bad thing with the umpire and all that. But anyway, Milton's awesome guy. I love Milton, even though I think he's bipolar. Milton's awesome guy. I really think he was one of my biggest nemesis and biggest friendship on the team. I mean, the guy was friendliest guy ever, and I've never had a problem with him. And I joke around with everybody, and some people kind of get mad that I joke too much. But anyway, just as a player, spring training trades kind of tell the players, hey, we're not going to win. We're shooting for next year, even though management. That's where I talk about management, coaching, players are all in the same agreement, going the same way. We all can trust each other. But when you start saying we can't do certain things because management's going to find out, or management's like, don't tell the players we're going to do this, then it's just butt heads and you turn into the White Sox. So let's not do that. Let's do the Padres, and we have a chance this year. Yeah, we lost Profar. I'm going to say that. He had a great year, but I don't think it was as big as loss as we talk about it. And Kim, 2 years ago, had an unbelievable year, but he's the fan favorite. So you lose your fan favorite, but did he help the team a little bit, but not as much as, we're not going to miss him in that aspect. I hope Kim does really well, but it just happens. So I see us not trading anybody and going and getting trades this year, Because I think I'm going to say this a couple times that the Padres are supposed to end up third place, maybe make the playoffs, maybe a wild card or whatnot. But I think we're going to surprise everybody this year if everybody stays healthy. I think we have a good team, and that's what you need. And guys are really thinking like, hey, we almost did this last year. I think we've kind of upgraded, even though on paper it's not an upgrade. So you have some guys that want to prove, like Joe wants to prove some things. Hayward wants to prove some things. Sheets wants to prove some things. Who am I missing? There's a couple other guys that want to prove some things. I'm just drawing a blank. Hart, some other pitchers. So
Campusano has a lot to prove this year.
Persano, yeah, it's just they want to prove. And that, I mean, guys will take the chip on their shoulder and say, let's go. Let's do this. I can do it. So
yeah, and again, we'll see. I think there's no question that if this team stays healthy, this is a playoff team. It's just a big, big, big if, because as we've talked about, there's not a lot of reinforcements ready in the upper levels. There's talent in the lower levels in the minors, but in terms of guys you can call up and say, plug them in, as we see the Dodgers do every year where, oh, hey, we have some holes. Okay, we have Landon Knack. We have Andy Paz. We have, James Outman 2 years ago.
How the heck do they do that? That's all I got to say. We got to
fantastic.
Up to LA.
No, look, I mean, I have said it, I have written it, I have reported on it. Look, they are the class of Major League Baseball organizationally. Scouting, player development, they don't cut corners, they fully invest. Some teams are cutting scouts. A lot of teams don't even, they cut corners on player development staff. Some teams don't have, enough coordinators. The Dodgers don't do any of that. Everyone, they invest not just in the big league roster, but at every level of the organization, full scouting staff, full R&D, the best health and training facilities.
So what do we need? So what do we need to be them, except for $1 billion?
I will say this: the Padres, and this is to the credit of, again, there are things AJ Preller has done that have not been good. There are things he hasn't been good, but one thing he has done well and consistently done well is he has always maintained a full, highly qualified, top caliber scouting staff. And while he works them hard, they are well compensated and they are well treated. During the pandemic, when a lot of other teams were taking, making their scouts, take furloughs or firing them or laying them off, the Padres took care of all their salaries, guaranteed everyone, their jobs. They really took care of that, and player development as well. So I think the Padres, and Eric Grupner deserves a lot of credit for this as well. The Padres have actually done a really good job inputting some best practices in terms of player development, scouting. And they have become a first-class organization in the way they treat people, the way the office works. And I don't say that lightly, because there was a time they were not. And there are plenty of teams, I will tell you from my years as a national writer, are not first-class organizations. I don't put that designation on teams lightly, not just saying that because this is a Padres podcast. They truly are a first-class organization, the way they run everything. And so I think in that sense, they have done a lot of good things, and they have also ramped up payroll to consistently field competitive teams. Look, the Dodgers make $334 million every single year. Oh, that's their average. Some years they make more than that from their television deal. That's just not something the Padres are ever going to be able to match. It's just not.
I know that part. I remember times that we were good with one owner, and then we lost a lot of things with another owner.
Yeah, I think they have done everything they can. You say, what can they do to catch up to them? It's invest fully in scouting, invest fully in player development and player living situations, food, weight facilities, top tier coaches, employ a full scouting staff, don't try and cut corners there, and put out a consistently competitive team on the field with a big league payroll in the top half of baseball. That is what the Padres can do, and I would argue it's what they have done, and now it just comes down to executing and making good decisions. But the systems to succeed are in place, which is not the case for a lot of other teams and was not the case for the Padres for a long time. So the systems are in place to succeed. Now it's just about making good decisions in crunch time, players executing.
It's about finding the right guys in the minors, I think.
Yes, again.
Because you can get some free agents from the minors, but guys the right way that are trying to better themselves every single year. You get guys in the minor leagues that are just trying to get contracts, just trying to play out, going, okay, if I get to the big leagues, great, but I'll make some money in the minor leagues. Or guys that are just like stud players in college and high school and think they're the next coming, and they're not willing to work hard. Yeah. So you just got to find the right guys, and it's hard to find those guys. I know that.
It is. And that's where
Padres farm system. They have a lot of big promises. Some guys don't pan out, this and that, but I just, there's a few tweaks that I'd like to see that I was a part of when I was a Met. How minor league guys, they had to be in so many games, get so many at-bats before they even sniffed the big leagues. It didn't matter if you were the top prospect or whatnot. And the Dodgers were that way too years ago when the Dodgers, had Mike Piazza and stuff like that. So, and then every time guys left those two organizations, they did really well. So it's just kind of like, it's a little old school with the new school.
I think the Padres have the opposite problem where they rush guys too quickly. So I think
that's what I'm saying. I feel like they move guys too much, or they put them on a pedestal too much. And it's like, hey, let him play 1 or 2 years and then kind of throw him up there. He's got potential. It's not going to hurt anybody.
I could not agree more. I think this is a whole separate podcast I've talked about ad nauseum, but we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We got a lot of great stuff coming. Once again, we're 2 weeks from opening day. Roster cutdowns are coming. The spring breakout game is coming up tomorrow on Friday. I had a full preview of it, 40 minutes of running down all the Padres prospects in the spring breakout game. Make sure and give that a listen. Once again, this has been another episode of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, leave us a review. It all helps us. We really would love to hear from you and get your feedback. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you next week.
See ya.